appetite. I don't know about you guys. It seems like I'm always hungry. And and my wife says after dinner you shouldn't be eating anymore. You're not hungry. I said I'm still hungry. Uh, and I don't think I'm bored, but you know, our appetite's very, very interesting. So we're going to actually d delve into this quite a bit. So take it away.
My Camry, you're not hungry, you're bored, shut the door. That is my experience after dinner, exactly like yours, Dr. Curnew, where I still have to eat more, right? Not so much hunger, it's the appetite, which is psychological. You just want to fill the time sometimes with a little bit of eating as part of the routine, but also sometimes you haven't eaten enough, you have that sweet tooth, you want to have a little bit more. So, common experience. All right, take it
Yeah,
away,
of
Anya.
course. Yes. And just before we go on, I completely agree with the sweet tooth thing. As someone who loves cakes and ice cream, after like dinner, you have like that savory feeling in your mouth still, and you're like, "Ooh, I could use a little treats." But just to get into today as well, let's start off with a little quiz and see, just how much we know going into the webinar. Um, so first question is, next slide, please. So our first question is a true or false question. So metabolic adaptation. So in this case, metabolic adaptations is referring to changes in our body that move to conserve energy during calorie restriction or weight loss. So these metabolic adaptations are inherently negative. And so our answer for this is false. So it's false.
It's
Um,
kind of interesting. It's good and it's bad. You know, if you're in a starvation mode, it's good. If you're in too many, if we live with too many calories, then it's true. So I guess so. I guess it depends how you look at it. But I'm sure you'll explain that to us a little bit more.
Yes, we'll definitely talk about it a little bit more later on. But that's what you said, Dr. Hughes, is completely correct. Um, so again, next one, true or false? You can put diabetes into remission by losing 30 pounds. Oh, that's definitely very exciting to hear. And our answer is
True.
true.
There you go.
Dr.
This is the
Curnew.
result. So this 30-pound data comes from something called a direct trial, initially published in 2018, 2017, and they also had a recent 5-year update in 2024. Now, what they found, you can see the numbers, that 15 kilograms is around 30 pounds, and those who lost that much weight, 86% were in remission. Right, so that's a good, wonderful number. And the updates, the 5-year updates, I have them right here, some data for everybody. So 13% overall who were in the intervention group, the weight loss group, um, they are so at remission in 5 years. A little bit lower than I thought. And 29% of those who were in remission by the 2-year mark, they remain in remission at the 5-year mark. So it seems to be those some markers of success, but key takeaway is you can put diabetes into remission by losing weight, 20 to 30 pounds, depending on your body composition, depending on other factors as well.
So a couple things to mention about the direct trial is that these were basically predominantly brand new diabetics in the last 5 years or so, not on insulin therapies, and this is type 2 diabetes. Um, and it's been done in a couple different ways in people that are overweight and people that are not overweight. And even in the skinny people, losing weight translates to benefit. Now, remind us again, you said is it what percentage of people 5 years later were still in
Overall,
remission?
13%, 1-3. Um,
Okay.
so a little bit lower than I thought, and but 20, but the 2nd year mark, those who were in remission, 29%, 30% kept it in remission by 5-year mark. So
You can see these are very motivated people. They're having challenges. And I think this what teaches us is that this is a lifelong battle. So when you mentioned that first metabolic adaptive change is that the body wants to try to bounce back to where it was before. And I think it's going to be a chronic process. And it's like any sports franchise. Look, you have to strive to always get better, keep your foot on the accelerator. So after, and people say, well, my composition and my diet is good, but I haven't lost weight. If you want to put diabetes into remission, or if you want to treat the pre-diabetes, the number one predictor of success is weight reduction. So if you're eating all the right foods and you're still overweight, you're going to have trouble. Um, and we'll talk about different strategies about this. So I'm actually very optimistic that this can be done, but I realize how difficult it is too as well. I'm struggling. I lost 25 pounds. I put my diabetes into remission. I'm back up 5 pounds, and I'm gonna struggle. And I'll say this is that the number one determinant of success for most weight loss programs is when you fall off the wagon, you get back on there. And so what the direct trial, other trials are telling me is that yeah, we're going to have some ups and downs about this, and it's going to be a marathon, and there are going to be good parts of the marathon and bad parts, but you can actually do it. So this is the gold medal, putting your diabetes into remission for those who have diabetes or preventing diabetes. Tell us more. How do we do this?
Well, speaking of diabetes, I want to share your blood sugar levels as well. I think you hit 6.5% A1C back early summer of 2024. Got a little bit more motivated, lost a bunch of weight, and put it back. I think went down to 5.7, which was the, if I'm not mistaken, the October values. Maybe you had a more recent one, but you also have a continuous glucose monitor, the Libre device that's
Well, let me just
available.
pause for a second over
Yep.
here. So during the start of the pandemic, my weight was up to 185 pounds. And then this April, I had hemoglobin A1C around 5.7% for a number of years, and it jumped up to about 6.6%. My diet was pretty good, not ideal. My weight was down to 175 pounds. Um, so I was down 10 pounds or so. I was down to even lower values in the past. And then came the journey over here. And so I got as low as 160 pounds. My wife says I look like shit. And but to put diabetes into remission, you need to get your weight down. I'm up to around 165 at this point in time, and let's show some results over here. Now, this is these zones of blood sugar. I kind of like this. Um, and these zones more for people who are diabetic or non-diabetic?
This was non-diabetics. This was everybody. Yeah.
You can see that blood sugar fluctuates. Okay. And remember, the definition of diabetes is a fasting blood sugar greater than 7.0. And a 2 hour after blood sugar, I can't remember, it's over 10. Is that the number? I can't remember off the top of my head. I should know that. But glycosylated hemoglobin over 6.5 is the number for you think about for 3 month control. Glycogen, we'll talk about this here. So, and blood sugar spikes, and this Libre device. Let me just see what my blood sugar is right this moment. And so I use it, and right now, oh, good. I'm at 4.3, and this is the best I've been all day. So, and part of the problem I was just outside. So outside your vessels vasoconstrict, so it might be a falsely a little bit low value too as well. And if you look at what I'm having right now for dinner right here, I'm having some quinoa, some vegetables, stir-fried vegetables, and a chili, vegetarian chili, and I'm going to have a grapefruit, and I'm having some kombucha, and so that's what I'm starting off with now. This is the easy part. Now, what will I do afterwards is the hard part that will be a challenge, and we'll talk a little bit more as time goes on. But show us some values here. Tell us more.
Yep, these are the values. What's important to note that we always mention is that hemoglobin A1C, different than your glucose fasting and your lab values. If anybody looks at that, they're different values. Hemoglobin A1C is a percentage of glucose attached to your red blood cells, and whereas the glucose random or glucose fasting you see is direct glucose measurements. Okay. All right, next one.
All right, so our next question is another true or false. You may be able to control your appetite with healthy snacks. So, and the answer for this is true. You definitely can control your appetite with healthy snacks.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
I'm going to talk about this a little bit here, mainly because of anecdotal evidence or personal experience, right? As any of the scientists know, it's not at the top of the pyramid for evidence, but I want to talk about it because it can be a tool in the toolbox. As someone like myself who has lost weight, I've been trying to see how long I can keep it off. Right now, I've stabilized at my lowest. Now, part of the weapon in the arsenal has been trying to not overeat with the meals throughout the day, and part of that is with some of the healthy snacks that can curb the appetite. And I'm not sure if there's something inherently about these foods on the left. You know, the apples, the nuts, which is a huge tool for me, dark chocolate. There's some randomized trial evidence for some of these where it can suppress appetite, but it's more about having high protein foods, high protein snacks like nuts and fibers in your diet to just keep you from not overeating when it comes to mealtime, right? And not being hungry all the time, thinking about food. And you can see the opposite of that on the right, those hyper palatable snacks, which I think we've all had cookies, cakes, and I'm a victim of that as well right now as I speak. So I have a combination of the two right now. It shouldn't be, it should be all to the left. But you can see the ones to the right, you overeat them very easily, right? And it can increase your appetite as well. So if you want to make sure you can do this, the foods that can help with appetite regulation are the healthier on the left.
So I'm not sure if we're going to show some brain images of some of these foods here.
Yep,
Are we going to a little bit later? Yeah.
right here.
All righty. So okay, good. Tell us more about these
Yeah,
things.
just want to show that the junk food you see on the right, they can have a similar effect to some drugs like cocaine. You can see this image on the left that both parts of the brain light up with sugar and cocaine, right? So that it's very addictive process that's going on. And so part of it is biology, right? It's not just the power of will. Over time, if you're used to it, you have to have some tools to make sure you can make some adjustments and habit changing. But you can see how strong it is, so-called junk food and sweets in the human brain.
It's kind of interesting. Like we you know, a person that has a trouble with cocaine, we get angry if people have just a little bit of cocaine. And I think what I try to do with my sweet tooths and my is that well maybe I'll just have a chip or two or one and up having a whole bag. And one of my biggest downfalls is bread. So I try to have these all good healthy breads, but I think my brain lights up too much and I have trouble conquering that. I'm worse at nighttime. You also mentioned, Enya, that during the day, your eating habits change, and most people at nighttime have a stronger desire for for sweetness and so appetite to change that. So, and if you look at the you know the foods and nuts, the salmon and stuff, you know they're good healthy foods. We like them. They're good, but they don't give that euphoric effect or that cocaine effect to your brain, and it's very hard to get rid of that. And so I struggle, but whether or not to have a little bit of dark chocolate, or I can eat too much dark chocolate, or just a couple chips and one piece of toast versus a whole bunch of there. So I think you have to learn your body and decide what's best for you. And I think best for me is to avoid all these foods, but I don't want a boring diet too as well. I want to, you know, the beauty of really good healthy foods or good bad foods or whatever. So I think we all struggle with this, and so you can retrain your body, but it's tough when you constantly put that little stimulus of those foods on the right versus those foods on the left. And so just think about what sugar and cocaine can do. I'm afraid to try cocaine because I think I might like it and I'll get addicted to it. Um, and so my I have a sugar addiction and sweet tooth. Just imagine what happens if something like cocaine got into the mixture. So I'm terrified. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I was just telling you, Dr. Curnew, the president of Colombia released this in his speech was saying that we should legalize it, and just like alcohol, so probably not a good idea. But something I was going to add is one of the good methods is just not to buy them in the first place, because saying to yourself that I'm going to buy it out in the house and not eating it or not eating enough, I'm going to have one, it doesn't work. If you buy it, you're going to eat the whole thing. That has been my approach.
Yeah.
I try to look the other way. So if I buy it, it's going to be eaten.
Yeah.
Brownies was my lovely treats to de-stress, but if I buy them, I cannot regulate that. It's going to be eaten. So that's one of the
Yeah. Mm.
biggest tips I can give.
Mhm.
All
So it's
right.
kind of interesting what
Yeah.
society has done to it right now
Yeah.
is that during the pandemic, alcohol consumption has gone up, and at least in Ontario, we're trying to make alcohol available easier, which is the absolute wrong thing to do. So there are certain things about governments that if they're worried about your health, we should make things like alcohol less available, like you said, not being arranged there, and closing bike lanes when is not the right move in my mind. Um, and the same thing too. Now we're hearing about all the bad effects of all these online gambling situations and things of that nature as well. Is that so we have to redefine ourselves as a society right now, and doing what's right and not easiest is a much better approach. So I don't know about you. If you put candy in front of my face, I want it, and so there you go. Tell us more.
All right, and so our next question here, it's another true or false question. So after weight loss, we burn more calories doing the same exercise, true or false? And so the answer here is actually false. We do not burn more calories doing the same exercise after weight loss, and we'll talk about more about this later. Mhm. And our next question is, which macronutrient helps preserve muscle during weight loss and has a high thermic effective food, or TEF? And so just a quick little definition. So TEF, or the thermic effective food, is the energy used to digest, absorb, and process food. So it counts for around 5 to 10% of our daily calorie expenditure. And so the answer for this is protein. So protein is going to have the highest thermic effective food.
So that's actually kind of interesting. This that at one time we put a villain on fat and we replaced it with carbohydrate, which turned out to be a big mistake. And now we're learning that protein will become important. So I'm really working hard to try to increase my protein intake of good healthy proteins, and one of them is fish, as you mentioned. Um, but we can argue whether or not you eat somewhere between 1 to 2 grams per kilogram per day, depending on different situations. I think for many of us, we should be thinking about increasing protein, one to decrease appetite. Number two is to build muscle. And if you're really serious about building muscle, weightlifters, are up between 1.5 to 2 grams per day. Um, I think most of us are getting about a good gram of protein per day, but going to 1.5 or so, it might be better. And I'm trying to do that myself. And so I'm trying to do my diet is have more protein, um, trying to avoid liquid calories, have a lot more fiber, and trying to eliminate as much processed food as I can. Um, and so I think these are things that can be helpful. And fat is something that it's calorie dense, and for me, I um, like to get my fats through nuts as much as I can, and from oily fish, and but yeah, so I think I make it, and I'm getting away from protein powders too much. Everybody in my family has protein powder, um, and I sometimes take a little bit here and there, but I'm trying to get my nutrients mostly from real food, and increasing protein is a great idea.
Certainly, and I know we just talked about this right before the webinar as well, but how like the trying to lean towards like whole foods and making meals versus, things like protein powders. But yeah, I guess it really depends on, again, like what is the purpose of you wanting to consume more protein? Is it like for the purpose of satiety, for the purposes of, building muscle? If you're like a a bodybuilder, versus someone who, is just exercising to maintain mobility and maintain independence as they age. Like the way you get your protein will be very different as well. Okay, and I believe this is our last question. So, what is the best time to eat the most amount of calories? And the answer here is at breakfast time. Breakfast time is the best time to eat the most calories. And so we'll definitely be talking about this a little bit more as we move on. All right. And so, of course, to start off, some quick facts about, what does obesity, what does the stats for overweight and obesity look like right now. So around 50% of Canadians aged 18 and older are obese, overweight, and this was a study done in 2022. And 200, there are 200 weight-related medical conditions. There are 200, sorry, weight-related medical conditions, and workplace and $21 billion are spent incurred due to workplace productivity costs per year because of these issues. And so just some stats, and we also have another set of stats here as well. So the World Health Organization, the WHO, so this was again from 2022, this was number of individuals living with overweight back then, so this is globally. So they found that adults 18 years and older, 2.5 billion were overweight. For children less than 5 years old, 37 million were overweight. And for children and adolescents, so 5 years to 19 years old, 390 million were overweight. So obesity is now a global epidemic. I read somewhere that it's called globesity, so global obesity. But that's what it is. And so clearly it is, having been labeled an epidemic, very, very prevalent. And so so much research going into how can we mitigate this and the subsequent negative the subsequent negative effects of it.
Of course, it's. I think we're getting close to the shape of the Earth, or more round as a globe. Speaking of weight, this is about BMI, talking about how important it is. So BMI stands for body mass index, and you can calculate it by taking your weight and dividing by height squared. You can do this with feet and inches as well. We have a calculator on the next slide showing how to do it. But the important thing is you can see the sweet spot is the observational studies 20 to 23. Now, what this doesn't tell you is the body composition, how much muscle you have, how much fat you have, and where the fats are. Are they around your organs, so-called abdominal or visceral fat? So where it is, it's important, but you can see the higher the BMI is, the higher risk for all-cause mortality here.
So it's kind of interesting depending how you want to classify. And you can see that most people that are underweight may opposite represent illness, for instance.
Yeah.
And, I've seen studies up to over 70% of Canadians are overweight. If you define the ideal body mass index is 22, 23. And that's basically metabolic health is a key component for many of us. And you mentioned body composition as well being important. So I think understanding or getting your idea what your body mass index and keeping track of that is really important. And we'll show you a little table about that as well. So you should know, for instance, my body mass index is 23.5 right now.
Yeah.
So show us that little table.
I'll show it again, but I just want to show you. This is your old one, but I will come back to this. This is the table for BMI.
Okay. So just put your height and your weight. Either you can go metric or imperial, and just put yourself in there, and it gives you a way of doing this. And here's one website. What's the name of the website here? National Heart.
It's the NIH website. Yeah.
Okay,
Google does it too. We have lots of websites that do this.
Yeah. Okay. And let's go back to the next one. Let's see my body mass.
So this was I forgot the date. I think this was in November. So you were a little bit lighter, 158 pounds. And right now you said your BMI was 23 something.
Yeah, so I'll just get here as of this morning, my weight right now is 164.8 pounds. And my body mass index is 23.6. My subcutaneous fat is 17.5% of subcutaneous. Visceral fat is low, but these are there's many of the, we use something called it FitX, and what is the best one? We can talk about that. I don't know. The gold standard is oh,
It's an
what's the one
X-ray, yeah.
thing? Yeah, what's it called? The
DEXA
DEXA
scan,
scan.
yeah.
And you can see is that so what I'm trying to do is generate more muscle and lose more fat here. So that was the best I got to at one time. And you can see my metabolic age down there was 58. I'm 65 right now, and today my metabolic age is 60. Um, and it's a constant struggle, and I find that I find myself weighing myself every day is something that I find keeps me on track most of the time. And you can be 5 pounds up or down the same day depending on how much
Yeah.
how much exercise you've done and what you're doing right now. So I encourage people to think about doing this. And for some people, it's depressing. To me, it's just a way to help motivate me and guide me in my journey. I find when I don't measure, I tend to fall off the wagon more and more. Um, so at least, yeah, tell us more.
Certainly. And going back to the BMI, I'm not sure if uh, those who are keeping track of the news, but recently, I think a few weeks ago, there was a news that said BMI, they're trying to like reconfigure it in some way, maybe shifting away and trying to use different standards to calculate or classify obesity or overweight. But I think I think another takeaway is that because BMI is so easy to use, it can be employed anywhere and calculated so easily, even at home. You don't need to go into the doctor's office for this. It can be a good marker of where you're at, but again, as we saw in Dr. Curnew, your BMI composition measurements, what your body is composed of, like what types of fat your body is composed of, is also, or sorry, what types of tissue your body is composed of, plays a larger part in determining your health compared to just an overall BMI measurement. Though it is a good marker, but again, coming down to composition of how much is visceral fat, how much is subcutaneous, how much is muscle, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to talk about my own. So this is my BMI, it's 22.5, so in that good range. But I still have a little bit of belly fat, right? So, you can have a good number. So what you said they're trying to move away from it is more getting to the visceral fat. What's your um, waist circumference to height
Mm-hmm.
ratio? Those numbers are also very informative. Yeah. So if you have a
So,
belly,
Mm-hmm.
that's a problem.
okay, so the important thing is that um, your number one source of glucose is your muscles. So you want to keep your muscles there. Your liver has some too as well, but you don't want fat to go in the wrong places. So if you start getting fat in the pancreas, unfortunately, you develop diabetes. You get fat in the liver, you develop cirrhosis, insulin resistance. So that's the thing is you want fat to be in fat cells, not to be in organs that are vitally important to yourself here. And very few Canadians don't have a problem with this, and it's going to be a constant up and down battle. And you can see in the direct trial was one of the better trials. There's also the broad trial. There's other trials as well that showing is losing 30 pounds and keeping your diabetes in remission is achieved in less than 15% of people at 5 years. So that means what you need to do. It's like the Toronto Raptors won a world championship once, and they're trying to do it again. So you have to retool yourself. And in the direct trial, they went on to these liquid shakes for a period of time, and they put a high intensity. So I think at times you're gonna have to just go, put yourself through, really tough workout and keep working at that. And other times you're going to relax a little bit and get back on it. And there'll be different phases in your life. You unfortunately get an injury, you get sickness, you have a family situation, financial situation that makes it hard. But you retool and you start again. But it's really important to keep that long range vision going to move forwards about this. And um, I was surprised that I had to deal with this, but it's in my family, but I'm and what I find the beauty is this there's so many factors, as you said, to make this work here. But things that help me is trying different things, being around you guys and being around the different groups that we have. And you led the weight loss team for quite some time and made a huge impact and helped me a lot. Um, Rad, I know we went right to the the TICAT game, you outran me, and yeah, but I'm still going to beat you on the CN Tower, I hope, for a little bit longer, not much longer, but it's just fun having these fun events and things of that nature, and just surround yourself. And we're now through our push-up challenge, and I think I'm about a week away before I can start doing push-ups. My eyes are
Starts February
getting better.
11th, so you're just right on time.
Okay,
Mhm.
so
Well, maybe in a few days, so maybe a little bit behind, but you'll catch up.
we'll catch up. We'll catch up. Well, tell us a little bit more about the slide here. What else you want to tell us?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, based on the quiz and everything we just talked about, we know how crucial it is to manage our weight. We know all the bad things that can happen if we develop overweight, we develop obesity that can lead into things like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and so many other comorbidities. But obviously, it's a lot easier said than done trying to lose weight, as we all know. And so let's talk about a little bit about specifics. So appetite and how does that come into play? All right, next. So appetite regulation. So if we define it, appetite is the natural desire to consume food and is influenced by physiological, psychological, environmental factors. Again, human beings, we need to consume food to survive. And so this is a survival instinct. And it plays a crucial role in weight management by regulating how much we take in, how much energy we take in to meet the demands of our body at that moment. Right, next, please. And so there are a few key hormones involved. Okay, sorry, a little bit of lag there, but there are a few key hormones involved that we're going to continuously kind of touch back upon throughout the entire webinar. So just to put them out on the page here first. So ghrelin is that hunger hormone. It's produced in our stomach and it increases appetite by telling our brain we're feeling hungry, tell the rest of the body that you're hungry so we can get some food. Leptin is secreted by our adipose or our fat tissue, and it tells our brain to reduce our appetite. And this is when we've eaten, we are finished, we're full. And leptin is secreted to tell, hey, you can stop eating now. You're not feeling hungry anymore. Insulin is produced by our pancreas. If you have type 2 diabetes or diabetes, this is probably not a new word to you. And it helps regulate our blood sugar. It has also appetite suppressing effects by acting on our central nervous system. Peptide YY or PYY is released by the small intestine after eating, and it also helps reduce appetite by slowing down our gastric motility, so slowing down all their digestive processes, and it signals to our brain that, hey, we're full, you can stop eating now. And now, PMC glucagon like peptide 1 or GLP-1, another word if you are into things like Ozempic, if you're following the weight loss drug kind of wave. Also a key word there. It's secreted by the gut when we eat, and then it also enhances satiety and inhibits our appetite through the brain, and by also, again, slowing down our digestive processes. So these are some key words. Again, we're going to touch on these later. No need to memorize it now. We'll go all of these again.
So you can see that we have many hormones involved, and we can block GLP-1, which is basically Ozempic, and we can block 2 or 3 of these hormones or multiples. There's probably many more we haven't learned how to measure yet. So it's really truly amazing, this whole situation. And up until recently, there's the weight loss medications haven't worked. These actually do work, and they actually improve health, and for many people it can be a game changer. So don't be afraid to say, people say medications makes me a failure. No, it doesn't make you a failure. It can add to your quality of life and quantity of life too, as well. Is that I'm constantly searching for food, seems like, more at nighttime. I'm looking at ways to try to suppress my appetite. And you saw that slide where cocaine and sugar were compared to how it stimulates your brain. Some of us brains gets more stimulated more easily than the others, and I think so I want you to be open to trying these things. And science has developed in such amazing ways. So this has been a tremendous breakthrough, this understanding. At one time we talked about leptin deficiency, and then affecting ghrelin, but if you just block those 2 effects, you don't really do too much. It doesn't really have the greatest effect. So how many hormones you have to deal with and things of that nature as well. So these are important. Um, one of the hormones that I kind of like is beans. Bean gives you an Ozempic-like effect, and it does actually stimulate those hormones too as well. So think about how you can do things naturally in other ways. So keep telling us more.
Yeah, of course. And to that point too, Dr. Hearn, you mentioned, taking medications or needing medications or other resources are not a sign of, you don't have the willpower. Rather, you can think of it as adding tools to your toolbox to help you, progress on your health journey. Yeah, and continue on. So this brings into the gut-brain axis. Some people may or may not have heard of this, but essentially it's that crosstalk between your brain and your gut. And so it's essentially saying that this would increase the metabolic capacity of the host, provide vitamins, protects from colonization of pathogens. So our gut microbiome does this. So gut microbiome is also becoming a recent hot topic-ish. Everyone's trying to study the microbiome. It's been linked to several chronic diseases, inflammatory diseases, and stuff like that.
It's to sell you something. Sorry, Nia.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just this much of it is just marketing, but go ahead.
Oh no, no. That too, I will say, but also I feel like I've seen some more, just in terms of my review as well. The focus on the gut microbiome is also a little heavy, but again, with more research, we'll see sooner or later, whether or not, there actually are some things that we can, do there. But essentially, that crosstalk between your brain and your gut is regulated. And when it's disrupted, so when your gut microbiome is disrupted, it's called dysbiosis. And there's an imbalance there in between, let's say, the healthy bacteria and the unhealthy bacteria. And this can lead to low energy, overweight, addiction, impaired immunity, or loss of appetite. And so, again, this little section here was just to kind of introduce appetite regulation. What are the key players here? And then now into metabolic adaptations during weight loss. So, metabolic adaptations during weight loss, I think over the years, there has been, I guess, some discussion surrounding it. And it really asking, is our body working against us essentially when we're trying our best to lose weight? And so before we continue, just to find a few more terms, you'll see these throughout the presentation as well. So BMR, basal metabolic rate, are calories burned to perform baseline bodily function. So just breathing and living and surviving. What is the amount of energy that we need to take? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT, are the calories burned during daily activity. So you're just walking around, walking up the stairs, sitting, getting up, standing, walking around, something like that. Thermic effective food, we just talked about this as well. These are calories burned when we're digesting, absorbing food. And exercise activity thermogenesis, or EAT, are calories burned during active exercise. And so we can see that all of these add together. So to add up to 100% of our total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE. Next, please. All right. And so what are metabolic adaptations exactly? So metabolic adaptations are the changes that occur when the body conserves energy during calorie restriction or weight loss. And so typically, larger bodies burn more calories. Therefore, energy expenditure declines as people lose weight. And this is expected as most of the time you do lose some muscle along with the fat. You might kind of have metabolism declines a bit, causing you to burn fewer calories than you did when you were heavier. But metabolic adaptations occur when our total daily energy expenditure falls below the predicted value. So on the slide here, it says your body is using less energy, so a lower RMR than predicted for its new size. RMR here is the resting metabolic rate. It's often interchangeably used with BMR. RMR just includes small activity like fidgeting or stuff like that. So it's not your true resting, but it can be used interchangeably. So again, this just means your body's using less energy than predicted for its new size, and it requires less energy to function. So again, total daily energy expenditure declines and you burn fewer calories. And this can explain why weight loss is not linear and why almost all those who are trying to lose weight will hit a plateau at some point. Next, please. So why exactly do these metabolic adaptations occur? It's kind of frustrating, we're losing weight most of the time to be healthier. And so wouldn't our body want that as well? But there are a few hypotheses out there, and I chose the two, I guess, more often talked about theories. So the first one is an evolutionary basis for metabolic adaptations called the thrifty gene hypothesis. So metabolic adaptations occurred as a survival trait when our ancestors were hunter-gatherers. Dr. Curnew, you talked about this at the very beginning as well. So when food was scarce, any type of calories you had were strongly held onto, and we try to make the most of the few calories that we did have. And so our bodies are not yet accustomed to the food abundance of the 21st century. So we're living in an obesogenic environment right now. There's too much food at any time, anywhere. It's too convenient to get. And so these adaptations are a built-in physiological reaction to maintain homeostasis when calories and our body mass decreases. And this is going to help us survive. So we expend less energy when our calories are scarce. And so we're going to try to regain that lost weight as well. The set point hypothesis is the theory that the human body has a predetermined weight range it naturally tries to maintain by adjusting its metabolism. So when someone loses weight, their body may actively compensate and by slowing down metabolic rate and slowing down and increasing hunger cues, to return to that set point weight. And this theory works on the basis of homeostasis and maintaining an internal stability. And I think it's important to note here that both of these theories are a good place to start thinking about the frameworks of metabolic adaptations, but neither of them can actually explain the full picture. And so, again, many more theories coming out, much more research is coming out to try and try to piece more puzzles together to create that full picture. Next, please. So, based on what we talked about so far, it seems that metabolic adaptations, again, aren't very helpful. And the media has definitely taken this idea and run with it in terms of trying to sell you things, trying to tell you things of what you should do, what you should buy in order to overcome this. And I think this has created a misconception that metabolic adaptations are the primary cause of weight regain or the reason why an individual cannot lose any more weight after a certain point. And this can cause a lot of grief for those who are trying to lose weight. It causes a lot of frustration, and it can be very disappointing and maybe even cause some people to kind of fall off the wheel. But let's take a look at the research and see what we can find. Next, please. So the Biggest Loser study was initially following 16 contestants on a show called The Biggest Loser back in 2012. Not the best name, but essentially these contestants were challenged to lose as much weight as possible in 30 weeks, and the winner got a bunch of money. Super brutal process. They were exercising, I think, for hours a day, extreme caloric restriction. People would do anything to get money. So obviously they went to the extremes. And this researcher, Kevin Hall, and his team, they did initial study of these contestants back in 2012, and they did a 6-year follow-up. So in 2018, this time with 14 contestants. So on average, they regained 2/3 of their lost weight, but some didn't regain any weight at all. And so it really was a bit variable among the contestants. And they found that people who had lost the most weight right after the show had the greatest metabolic adaptation. And so that means they had the biggest discrepancy in terms of how their total daily energy expenditure between their predicted and their observed. And so even after the show had ended, after 6 years, they did their follow-up. They found that this metabolic adaptation actually continued on. It was persistent. And this led to a lot of drama with people thinking that it was possible to destroy your metabolism and that these weight loss interventions don't work. But many of these contestants still maintain clinically meaningful weight loss over the 6 years. And this is still a very good thing. So Kevin Hall, lead researcher, again, put out a reinterpretation of the study in 2021, which is what you see on the slides here. And he found that some participants with the highest metabolic adaptation had the least amount of weight regain. So the greatest reduction in metabolism showed the least amount of weight regain. How does that make sense based on what we talked about so far? So essentially, they separated the contestants into 2 groups. One was they had more physical activity, and one group had less physical activity over the 6-year period. And they found that those who exercised more actually had more metabolic adaptation, but maintained their weight and did not regain as much weight as the group that exercised less. And essentially, this reinterpretation wanted to highlight the potential that these persistent metabolic adaptations they observed was likely a result of their substantial and sustained increases in physical activity, not the participants' quote unquote destroying their metabolism. And I do want to say that this relationship between exercise and metabolic adaptations is barely significant based on the p-value. So again, taking this with a grain of salt, but this reinterpretation helps to explain why similar degrees of metabolic adaptation aren't observed in long-term weight loss programs, taking again into account that the Biggest Loser study was essentially forcing people to lose a bunch of weight in 30 weeks. And it was very intense because again, there's that competition sense to it. So everyone was like doing anything to get to like chop down the weight on the scale. So Kevin Hall again postulated that one reason for the observed decrease in weight gain relative to the lower exercise group could be due to exercise's influence on food intake by affecting appetite signaling, you know, those hormones that we talked about earlier throughout the day. And so key takeaway here is that slow and steady weight loss paired with physical activity may be more sustainable than what we see, than the extreme weight loss methods that we saw in the Biggest Loser competition. Mm-hmm.
So one way you can think about this is that these people, you know, had health coaches, motivation, money, TV, fame. They did everything they possibly could. They had a lot of support, and they lost a lot of weight. And to me, the best predictor here is if you're not prepared to exercise, you can sacrifice for a while, but you know you have these metabolic changes. I want to get back to that. And to me, this points out is that you need to caloric restrict to lose weight, and to maintain your weight down, you need to add a lot of activity. So there's a whole series of uh, good information saying if you don't add serious activity, people who don't exercise after going on a diet, successful weight reduction at 1 year is about 2%. Um, and people who lose weight and keep the weight off are usually spending 60 to 90 minutes of activity most days. 60 to 90 minutes most days. So I try to incorporate 10 to 14 hours of activity, of serious activity a week. That's a lot. Am I always there? No. Right now is that I had a hip injury that kept me sidelined for a few months. I'm starting to bounce back. I'm also having cataract surgery, so I'm quite limited. Um, but I find that activity is a great joy to me. It's to me vitamin E, my vitamin E is vitamin exercise, and I hope you can find your vitamin E in your vitamin exercise. So this is actually a very good example here that the people who keep the weight off are those that are doing the most exercise. And doing, you know, going for a 30-minute walk a few times a week is not going to keep your weight off. So sorry.
Yeah, to that point, I had a professor tell us too that like you know, like the Ontario guidelines of physical activity says it has to be like I believe it was 60 minutes of moderate to intense level physical exercise. And walking does not count. And so, you know, as university students, she was talking to us and saying, walking, you know, to and from class to the subway station does not count as your exercise. No, no, no. It has to be dedicated, like exercise that gets your heart rate up, gets you sweating. So yeah, make a very good point there. Um, but moving on, so this was another study. This was a secondary analysis of data from the CALORIE study, which was a randomized clinical trial. The CALORIE trial involved a 25% reduction in energy intake over 2 years. So this was only a calorie restriction study. The participants were given individual counseling, and there was like a database to support adherence to the calorie restriction, but there was no prescribed diet, so nothing that they had to eat or had to avoid. And there was no prescribed physical activity requirements. So they could eat what they want as long as they stayed within that calorie range. And so essentially what they found was that as people lost weight, their RMR, their resting metabolic rate decreased. So this again in line with the metabolic adaptation that we've mentioned earlier. And they noted that there was a downshift where it was reducing energy expenditure to survive on fewer calories. And we can see some pretty significant variability between participants. So this graph is showing basically all the participants they took. I believe it was 109 they had. But essentially we see that the entire bar is essentially the amount of change they had in their total daily energy expenditure or their resting metabolic rate. And the gray parts represent where it was their changes due to tissue loss or gain, and the white part represents metabolic adaptation. So again, see some very extreme variability here where a lot of people actually experience great reductions great reductions in energy expenditure due to metabolic adaptation, but some actually experienced increases in total daily energy expenditure. Again, important to note that this study did not control for exercise, only calorie restriction, and it didn't even control for the macronutrients or anything, just the amount of calories. But after taking an average, they calculated that 60% of this RMR reduction is attributable to tissue loss, while 40% is due to metabolic adaptation. And this metabolic adaptation is what likely introduces all this variability as well among person to person. Another point they found was that there was actually, the more fat tissue people lost, the more their RMR decreased. Surprisingly, muscle loss did not contribute much to the reduction in RMR, so it challenges that common assumption that preserving muscle mass is the main way to maintain metabolism during weight loss. But again, this does not mean muscle is not important. We just spent a lot of time talking about how muscle is super important, not just metabolism, but also to maintaining mobility as we age, maintaining independence as we age. This just means that fat tissue plays a larger role than originally assumed. And this adaptation was also linked to changes in hormones like leptin, insulin, and T3. Remember, leptin is the satiety signaler. It tells our body that we're full, stop eating. And this hormone actually decreased the most as people lost their fat tissue. And so when the hormones decrease, the metabolic rate also decreased. And we're going to talk about this later on as well. Next, please. So this was another figure that I just wanted to show. This really just visualizes the weight changes in adipose fat tissue versus muscle tissue throughout the first 12 months of the caloric restriction diet. So this is the same study. We also see that there's an immense weight loss the first 6 months. So we can see there's a huge drop so there's a very significant drop in fat in adipose tissue from 0 months to 6 months. And there is a significant but smaller difference in skeletal muscle tissue from 0 to 6 months, but it is significant. But then after 6 months, 6 months to 12 months, we can see that there's a plateauing, something that we may all be familiar with. And the authors of this study concluded that weight management strategies need to be more personalized due to, again, how variable each body adapts to tissue loss, especially fat loss. But also research suggests that exercise-induced weight loss may not lead to the same metabolic adaptations as calorie restriction alone does. As we've seen like in the Biggest Loser study, the effects of tissue on the pattern, the effects of exercise on the pattern of tissue loss, muscle increases, as well as the effects on circulating hormones. In fact, being calorie restricted for too long of a time, especially if it's a very intense one, like we saw in the Biggest Loser study, can lead to plateaus that we see here because the calorie deficit does not match your body's needs as RMR decreases when you lose weight. And so this insight can really guide more effective combinations of diet and exercise that we'll talk about later. But essentially, overall, it states that a combination of calorie restriction and exercise are important. Both of them are needed to combat against metabolic adaptations, ensure that you have healthy and sustainable weight loss.
So it's kind of interesting things right now, in my way of looking at it, is that I look at people like professional athletes. They go through winning streaks and losing streaks, and you go through periods of time where you're at peace with your family, you can job's going well, you have time to exercise, and you lose a lot of weight. And people say, I want to go slow and steady. I think you have to go with the flow. There are going to be periods of time you're going to get sick, injured, stresses in the life, and you're going to fall apart. So for a person who used to love go fishing going as a young kid, is that sometimes you're in a school of fish, you catch a lot of fish, and sometimes you just sit there, you don't catch anything. And so I'll take what I can get when it comes to weight, so there's going to be productive times, unproductive times. So this business slow, I don't know, go for it and just keep trying new things. Keep telling us more. I'm going to put some egg whites in the microwave as we go here.
Perfect. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So again, as described before, metabolic adaptations are body's natural response to changes in our weight. So again, coming back to that misconception of, metabolic adaptations are the primary reason why we are experiencing weight regain or we can't lose any more weight. It's not inherently negative. It's just our body's natural response. Again, it's been described as applying breaks to our weight loss journey and highly variable between individuals. And while it can last a long time, it's not always permanent. And so, again, some ways to mitigate this, Dr. Curnew mentioned, going at your own pace. So seeing how, life is variable, it's different for everyone. So going at your own pace and doing what works for you. Not be careful not to over restrict your calories at the very beginning. And again, staying active, resistance training, making sure that our muscles are still being used and being built upon to increase our metabolic rate, but also, again, super important for just living. So, yep. And then quickly moving on. So again, recapping, how do our hunger and satiety signals change after weight loss? So ghrelin, again, the hunger hormone, tells us that we're hungry, and after weight loss, ghrelin levels will increase. So this, again, kind of going back to our hypotheses of, our body's losing weight, we're not getting as many calories, our body's like, oh my God, we're starving, you need to do something about this. And so it's releasing a bunch of ghrelin telling us you need to find food right now. And so after losing weight, this could contribute to an urge to increase, so increased hunger signals to the brain. Next, please. And so leptin is, again, that hormone we talked about, the hormone that tells us that we're full, essentially. And when we lose weight, when our body fat decreases, our leptin levels also decrease, like we saw in that tissue study. As our leptin levels decrease, our metabolic adaptations also increase. And so this will make it a lot harder to lose weight because our body is constantly telling us that we're hungry and we're not full. Next, please. And so again, maintaining weight loss comes with a change in energy expenditure, which favors weight gain. And again, it makes it super difficult. And so, but not impossible, I want to say. It makes it difficult, but not impossible. And so essentially what happens is that you need less calories than before to perform body functions. You might move less a little too, just because there's less weight to lose. So it means when you burn less calories doing the same exercises you did before weight loss, and because of those hormonal changes and changes in your key hormones and appetite hormones, and there's going to be changes in your appetite that may make it very much easier to return to old eating habits, contributing to weight regain. And so let's talk about a case study. So Robert, he is a 47-year-old. He initially weighed 270 pounds, and 3 years ago, he lost 85 pounds through calorie deficit and regular exercise. He comes in for a checkup, and you realize he has gained back 60 pounds. And he says here, I don't know what to do. The weight keeps coming back on. It feels like every moment of the day, I can't help but think about food. It was never like this before. I lost the weight, and no matter how hard I try to stop eating after one serving, I just can't seem to do it anymore. And so now, why do we think Robert is experiencing this weight regain? This is very common. It's because long-term maintenance of weight loss is the primary challenge. So there's many biological, environmental factors at work to resist weight loss and promote regain. And this just means that weight loss needs to be a long-term, sustainable effort, again, to make it pay off. Otherwise, you're going to end up where you started, and you're just going to feel terrible about yourself. But again, as Dr. Curnew mentioned, take it day by day. Go at a pace that is comfortable and reasonable for you. Right. So now we're going to talk a little bit about exercise effects on appetite and metabolism.
Go back to our case there. So
Yeah.
to me, is that one of the big predictors of success is past success. The fact that Robert has lost so much weight means he can do it again. And what can he learn from this? And this is a person that would probably do much better on whether bariatric surgery if you wanted to, or medications. Someone who's never lost weight, never been successful, those are the people I worry the most of. So I'm encouraged with Robert because I think Robert has a great future. learning from past experience. You learn more from your failures than your successes sometimes. And we'll give some strategies a little bit later at the end there, but good job, Robert. You can do it again.
100% true. And, the fact that Robert's already lost that much weight before, he can, learn from his mistakes and successes in that previous round to build upon and build a new schedule or a new routine for himself moving forward. Okay, so exercise and appetite. So hormones, again, we're talking about them again, bringing it back up. So leptin, leptin and peptide YY tell us that we're full. Ghrelin tells us that we're hungry, that we're missing nutrients, we're missing calories. And so when we exercise, specifically exercise reduces ghrelin and increases PYY or the peptide YY and makes us feel less hungry. And this effect can increase the more intensive the exercise activity is. And it's important to note this effect tends to happen with moderate to intense physical activity. And contradictingly, strength training some exercises may increase appetite in the short term, but but the trade-off that you get of building, health, overall, fitness definitely outweighs the short-term increases in appetite. Next slide, please. And so when we eat our food, so muscle metabolism, when we eat our food, our body converts the food we eat into energy, also known as calories. Our body burns off these calories by allocating them towards many different things. About 60 to 75% of the calories we consume daily go towards basic bodily function. So again, talking about that little chart again, our total daily energy expenditure, a lot of it goes to our BMR. And so the remaining percentage is allocated towards, daily non-exercise activities, digestion, exercise activities. And so the calories we burn from maintaining basic bodily functions, again, our BMR, our basal metabolic rate, is typically higher in males than females, since males naturally tend to have more muscle mass. They tend to be a bit larger than females. And what does this mean? It just means that muscles play a large part in maintaining our metabolic rate. They are very important. Unlike fat tissue, muscle tissues are active tissues. So even at rest, they will still burn calories. And this is because having muscles requires energy to maintain and repair themselves. So the more muscles you have, the more calories your body will require, increasing your metabolic rate. And therefore, metabolism can be increased through strength and resistance training. And there will be a brief analogy on the next slide. So the metabolism bank analogy. So pretend that your basic metabolic rate is a piggy bank. And the coins inside that piggy bank is the amount of calories that you consume without gaining or losing weight. And every time you do resistance training, especially consistent training, your body builds muscle. So metabolism coins go into the piggy bank and increase your overall metabolism. So if you started off with a BMR or basal metabolic rate of 1,800 calories and you do strength training regularly, you will eventually increase your BMR piggy bank to 2,100 calories. And if you continue to do strength training and build even more muscle, again, you become more and more rich and metabolism coins. Since your metabolism is higher, you might feel more hungry depending on person, which is why strength training may increase your appetite very temporarily in short term. But again, this is also why it's not entirely a bad thing. Your muscles are important. You need muscles. And but again, you will also have a higher BMR. And so if you're able to manage that appetite, that hunger along with your strength training, is going to account for fat mass loss over time and you reaching your goals and getting closer to your goals. Right. So implications for weight management. What can we do now knowing all of these? So essentially, key factors for weight management, diet science for sustainable weight loss. Again, what we want to talk about is not like the Biggest Loser study. No one is forcing you to lose as much weight as you can in 30 weeks to win a bunch of cash. No, the goal should be for yourself, for whatever goal you want to work towards. You want to be healthier, you want to run a marathon, you want to be able to play with your grandkids for longer. So everyone's goal is different, but it has to be sustainable weight loss in order to reach those goals and continue relishing in those goals. And so we know that we need an energy deficit. So to lose the weight, the calories you burn, your TDEE, or your total daily energy expenditure, has to be greater than the calories you consume. And so this is made up of, again, we talked about your resting metabolic rate, your BMR, your TF. So that big, the little chart we saw at the very beginning. And again, as you lose weight, your body will adapt. We talked about this earlier too, by reducing your total daily energy expenditure. And we're going to talk about some methods to overcome that as well. So nutrient-dense foods. We have to eat nutrient-dense foods again. So reduce the amount of calories you get, but also increase that feeling of fullness. Proteins are going to be very helpful for this. So protein sources are very helpful for this because they have a higher TEF, so thermic effective food. They will help us feel fuller when we eat them. And it takes actually a lot more energy to break them down than other types of macronutrients. And again, mindful eating, encouraging you to pay attention to your hunger and fullness signals as you eat. So typically, and I think it's so easy nowadays, especially with a bunch of distractions. So TV here, you're working on something here, you're, I don't know, doing else something other here. I think when we eat now, it's oftentimes not like a focus on eating kind of thing. You're always doing something else. You're always distracted. And so it can be really easy to eat fast and overeat. And so mindful eating really focuses on telling you to say, hey, we're going to do one thing at a time, and we're going to start eating and paying attention to our signals that our body is sending us. All right. So exercise, key component. And as we talked about earlier, all the studies that have shown us exercise plays a role in helping us maintain sustainable weight loss. So resistance training is crucial. It preserves that lean muscle mass, and it's a major contributor to our resting metabolic rate, our RMR. And again, this will help with making weight loss more sustainable and more easier to keep over time. Aerobic activity, things like running, swimming, cycling, are great for improving your cardiovascular health, which Dr. Curnew will definitely tell you about when you go visit him. But they're also really good for boosting your total daily energy expenditure. And then non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, so NEAT, just essentially saying move around more throughout the day. So it doesn't have to be intense, moderate to intense activity all the time. But choose things that will get you active. So increasing your daily step counts, maybe choosing to take the stairs, maybe getting up every hour. So consciously telling you to get yourself up every hour to walk around, just because everyone is seated for hours and hours and hours every single day recently. All right, next, please. And so we also talked about this at the beginning as one of our quiz questions. The timing of your meal also matters. And so the timing of when you intake the most amount of calories. So this study was published in Obesity in 2013 and investigated how meal timing can affect circadian rhythms and the feeding systems. And so this was a 12-week randomized control trial. They took 93 overweight, obese women and they placed them into two isocaloric, so essentially weight loss groups. So each group had eaten the same amount of calories, but they just split it into either a big breakfast group or big dinner group. And so they found that the big breakfast group, compared to the big dinner group, had 2.5 times greater weight loss, increased insulin sensitivity, a decrease in their triglycerides, decreased hunger, and increased feelings of satiety. And so the author suggested that eating a big breakfast has superior ability to reset and align with your circadian metabolism to improve all of these things, while a big dinner would promote fat storage and impaired glucose tolerance. So I'm not sure if anyone has ever heard of the saying, but of breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, dinner like a pauper. Essentially, front loading your calories at breakfast may be a superior weight management strategy.
So you could either, there's been different diets in this domain. Some have tried 6 small meals, some try time-restricted eating, things of that nature. I've now switched to a time-restricted eating. My downfall is nighttime eating. As you can see, I'm eating over here during the webinar. I'm not eating mindfully as you told me, but I'm trying to eat all the right foods. And I find that it's made a really difference to myself. The ideal time, the best eating window will probably be somewhere between 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. That's when your insulin sensitivity is the best, and this will go along with your study here. I find I can't do that very effectively right now because I find if I eat in the morning, I'll still eat at nighttime. And so what I'm done right now is that I don't eat till the afternoon. So what I do is that I'm eating now, and I will stop eating somewhere between 9 and midnight. Um, and then I'll burp and go to bed, fall asleep. And the next day is that I'll just be drinking coffee with a little bit of milk till sometime after 12. Today was at 1:30 at my first meal. I feel more energized. It helps my blood sugar control. Um, I would love to be able to eat from just 8 to 4, but I can't do that yet. But I think it will be a transition. My goal is to, because we'll show you some sugar things later, is that my sugar at nighttime is too high. And I'm less insulin sensitive, so I'd be better off from what you're telling me. But right now, can't do it yet. I'm going to work in that direction to get there. So try different things. But it's amazing how much better and how much easier it's been to keep my weight down. And there's many studies that show you eat 500 less calories if you time restrict. Keep you you're into it, and you have to try different things for yourself. So keep trying things. But sure, if
Yeah,
this doesn't work, try something else.
certainly.
Because if I find if I eat in the morning, I still eat at nighttime. So I gotta learn what my body says to us. The National Weight Control Registry. You can tell us about that, Rad?
Yep, yep. So the key takeaway from this, and I wish I could have highlighted that, it says, first of
What
all,
is
what
it?
it is. So this study started in 1994, and it followed people to see what are the predictors of successful weight management. You can see some of the factors on the left, and the one we want to highlight is that 90% of them
Okay, these were
exercised.
people who successfully lost weight long term and kept
Yep.
it off, and they actually verified. This is verified weight reduction. I can't remember exact details. Do you remember how much it was at all or anything? I can't remember that detail, but it was quite impressive. But tell us more. Tell me what made these people so special.
What made them special is what they did after the weight loss to keep it off, right? So activity most days, as you said, so the average 1 hour. And the reason that works is exercise makes you more sensitive to those hormones that Annie mentioned, to those appetite hormones. So it puts the appetite under control, which means less likely to overeat, less snacking. So overall, you maintain your isocaloric diet when you don't overeat, right? And that helps to maintain. People who don't exercise as much don't get that benefit as much. And you can see some of the other things. TV watching, right? And that's all synonymous with movement, step counts, high intensity interval training, sports, all kinds of things to just keep yourself moving. And you can see some of the other predictors on the right, some of the psychological factors, binge eating, the ones that were associated with weight regain, disinhibited eating, periods of excessive hunger. That will be a little bit present in intermittent fasting, but depending on the person, like yourself, Dr. Curnew, and myself, it works, right? So there's limitations and positives. So you can see activity, again, highly important.
So this is actually very, very interesting. So if you're going to lose weight, you can see that, 98% of people really worked hard at their diet, and 90% of people were exercising on average at least an hour a day. And this is really in keeping, as you talked, Daniel, to start off with, going for a walk to your subway, walking to your classes, or walking to work, or wherever you're going to walk to, is a starting point. And basically, last year, I averaged 12,000 steps per day. Um, and this year, I'm falling off the wagon right now because of injury to my hip and, more importantly, cataract surgery. Um, but I'm gonna get back to that. So I really think that these things are important. And you mentioned that social support and social network. Um, Most of the people, when we send out our ocean forms, I want to do things myself. That means that you're probably not going to do it. We're social creatures. Um, and is that so find your support, either your spouse, friend, neighbor, Weight Watchers, your local gym. Um, you come join us for a weight loss crew on Tuesdays or our mindfulness exercise group on Wednesdays. I think it's so important. I always feel better when I go. I don't always go, and you can go intermittently. Um, but I think is that one of the things that for most of these people, there was a key driving force, an event that took place. For for women, it was often an emotional event, such as going through a divorce. I remember one of the comments I read. My lawyer said I was too fat, and for a guy was he had a heart attack. And so there's often some sort of triggering event in people's life. But then they really work hard at this. So I come back to this, and people I keep saying over and over again is that is that it's too cold this winter time. I got too much arthritis. Um, the guy I go swimming in when I go swimming at the pool, I'm swimming the pool. He's walking the pool. This guy with bad arthritis. And he's outpowering me. I can't keep up with him. And so please, if you're really serious about your weight, one of the things is that you have to incorporate activity. You may be one of that 2% of people who can lose weight without exercise and mention all these adaptive effects. There's so many hormones to overcome. Um, so I think activity is so important, and I think the power of many is important as well. So this is the National Weight Control Registry, and this was done before all these weight loss drugs were available. None of these people were on weight loss drugs. None of people were taking Ozempic. So very valuable information. And the key is concentrating on eating, concentrating on support, and concentrating on serious activity. And it has to be vigorous, where you define vigorous to yourself is. Tell us more.
Yeah, of course. And we're going to talk a little bit more about those social supports later on, but just some other ways that we can, some other things that we can try to help us, maybe cut down the calories, try to overcome some of the metabolic adaptations. Maybe you're in a plateau right now, some things to try. One thing was drinking around 500 milliliters, so around 2 cups of water, 30 minutes before a meal to help, pad your stomach a little, I guess, and maybe help you eat a little less. Consider diet breaks or reverse dieting to combat metabolic adaptation. So a lot of times we are cutting down on our calories. And so this is essentially saying this is a period of time where you slowly increase your calories back to your maintenance level based on your age, weight, and current your current height, your height and your current weight. Sorry. Then you're going to increase your calories till you hit that number around 100 to 200 calories per week. Remember, keeping it slow, so not over restricting or over adding too quickly, too fast, so too much too fast. And again, you're going to incorporate protein and fiber rich foods. Check out the cooking club on the clinic's YouTube channel for some fun recipes as well. And don't forget resistance training to optimize this process. Again, you're adding your calories. A lot of people might be scared because that scale will go up again, but this is not necessarily fat. Don't be discouraged. Some is water weight as well, and you can do this for around 12 weeks until you reach your maintenance weight. And then when you feel like it's time to cut down again, your body will be more efficient in doing so. And so again, I feel like a lot of people look at a scale, and it is a very important. It's also a very valuable, important marker of your progress. But also, a lot of times when people hit a plateau and they might be discouraged, it's also just because your body, the composition of your body is changing. The tissues are changing. It's not always fat. It could be that you're building more muscle. And so that decrease in fat tissue is paired with an increase in muscle mass. And so that's why you might not necessarily see a change in your scale, but don't be discouraged because of that. And again, that social support. Dr. Curnew, the clinic is hosting the Curnew Health Olympics. And so February, as we mentioned in the beginning, is the push-up challenge. And so if you feel like you need a little bit more support, and you want to be in a group where everyone is doing it, so you have a bunch of people who are keeping you on track, then I definitely recommend that you try this out. And the next slide, please. And again, checking out some of our YouTube videos and our club. So if you're part of the clinic, then you can also join our weight management club that there are weekly meetings every Tuesday evening, and we just come together. It's a small focus group, come together, and we just chat. We learn and we chat and we talk about things that we've done that week. We catch up with each other. How was that week for you? Any struggles that you've had, and people just share their experiences. And I think it's a really great way to, again, build connections. And every week, being consistent, going to that club, meeting these people, meeting everyone and chatting. It's just one way, again, to stay consistent and stay motivated. Yeah, I'm not sure if Brad or Dr. Curnew, you want to add anything?
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for your insights. I guess that slide 59 doesn't work out, but basically there's Jenny, who also looked after the weight loss crew, also did a wonderful presentation and ran us through a randomized trial with time-restricted eating and high-intensity interval exercises, so-called HIIT exercises. I think that's really important. And then we have our video about putting diabetes into remission. And I think there's so many things to try right now. This is our YouTube channel. And again, on YouTube, you never age, I guess. So it's a young version and something I'm very proud of. We up to 800 and 487 videos right now, some a few minutes and some a few hours. So look at these sorts of things. So you can look at exercise snacks. You can look at different effects over time. So I find one of the things is I'm a number type of guy, and I really enjoy seeing what my blood sugar right now is 5.0. The problem with Libre 2 devices is they are expensive. It's $90 for every 2 weeks, and because Shoppers has its seniors discount on Thursdays, you can get 20% off on that day for if you get that over the counter and measure these types of things, and that helps keep me on track. So I know that I gained a few pounds, and my blood sugar went up a little bit, and um, now that I have my cataract operation and I'll be able to see better, uh, and my hip took quite a bit longer to get better than I want to. I go down fighting in all cylinders. So I think the principles are is that this is a marathon, and join and go back to our Olympics if you like. You can look at these Libre devices here. There's just so many things to look at, and you can learn to interpret your blood sugar. And it's a good thing if those people are pre-diabetic or diabetic to look at that. In Ontario, it's paid for by the government if you have sugar diabetes. And I always remember is that start off your meal with 2 glasses of water. And liquid calories are calories without fiber. They don't fill you up. And so that includes alcohol, juices, pop. Um, I try to eliminate. So basically, what I'm showing here is that my beverage is that right here. This is homemade kombucha that made by my wife. So it's fermented tea. Um, I add a little bit of water to that. I add a little bit of diet ginger ale for fuzz in that circumstance. Uh, my beverages are number one beverage is coffee with usually a little bit of skim milk. I can see that I have soy milk over here, and each serving of soy milk is 90 calories. Soy is quite rich in protein. It has 6 grams of protein. And the other one I eat a lot of, this is almond milk, and each glass of this is 30 calories. And I drink skim milk. Each glass of skim milk is 90 calories. So I'm looking at ways and I try to just limit alcohol to special occasions. It annoys me that alcohol is no longer a good food, but that's just what things are. And I try to limit my diet pop, but you go through different cravings, different times, and I love these challenges. You can either, if you want, raise money for the push-up people, or just participate and without having raised money, and so really proud of everybody for trying. I find that most people just don't want to try hard enough. I don't know why, and as we get older, after 30, the body starts to wear off, and after 60, 70, there's a steep acceleration, and 25% of us will end up in a nursing home. Um, and I want to keep in the last, somewhere between the last 2 and 10 years of life is spent with illness. So um, I'm 65 right now. I have cataracts. My blood sugar went up. I have to look at my blocked arteries with the best way of looking at these things. I get these aches and pains and things of that nature. But I'm going to go down fighting, and I hope you go down fighting too as well. And I like your piggy bank idea. Start putting money in your piggy bank. Your health in your piggy bank starts at the age of 20s, because after 30, you start to take money out of your piggy bank if you're not careful. Your health piggy bank there. So thank you so much, and it's nice to see you back again. Rad,
Yes, thank you.
any thoughts about anything?
Last thought I have is do it with people, right? When you mentioned why people are not ready to start, or when you mention lifestyle changes, fear sets in. I think it's because they think it's overwhelming. It's just by myself. I see a lot of people who are successful at lifestyle changes after a bad event. It's couples, right? You have people in teams doing it, or friends. You have your squash buddy that keeps you accountable. Right now, I've lost my running buddy, so I've stopped running a little bit. I have to keep back to it. So these things, people, you mentioned we're social creatures, is very important. I was telling about the weight loss team to a few of our patients, and it's not the knowledge that we share; it's about you coming, the accountability, the doing it with others. That counts the most. So I would say do it with others as long as much as you can, friends, family, online, whatever.
You know, it's funny, we were just at this meeting on Wednesday, about hearing this long-acting insulin, once-a-week insulin, how it's more convenient. I think the best way to inject insulin into you is to inject the Olympics and not require the insulin, or at least delay that. And I would rather use a Ozempic-like medication to lose weight in combination with all the lifestyle changes. Um, and do your push-ups and just do all the things that are important. Special thanks to Rad and Enya for putting this together. Is that let's work together. Let's get a little bit healthier. Any final thoughts, Enya?
No, I think I mean everything that we talked about today is so important. And again emphasizing again, it's very difficult to lose weight and maintain that weight over a long period of time, but it's not impossible. And so again, don't be discouraged. And as you mentioned, Dr. Curnew, going down fighting. You're fighting not to look a specific way, not for certain values on most of the time, not for certain values on a scale, but how you feel and how you want the last bits of your life to feel. And yeah, and thank you to like the weight management YouTube club as well. They were unfortunately no one was able to make it tonight, just me, but everyone put a lot of effort into researching and making the slides. So let's shout out to them as well.
Of course.
Good night, everyone, and I'll see you guys hopefully in a week or so, starting push-ups again. But I just gotta make sure my eyes get better and look beautiful, radiant, more color since I've had my cataracts.